Oh hey, just checking out my local gun board, seeing if there's any good Mauser rifles or pistols for sale. But coming across those, I wonder if some of these people even went to school, because I see a lot of ads selling a MOU SCR instead of a MAU SCR. The former makes me think you're trying to sell me a barn cat. Although Mauser did make some nice mouse guns in the early 1900s, and it makes me wonder if they missed out on a marketing opportunity. A Mauser.
Welcome to the Milsurp Mic channel. Today I'm going to show and shoot my Mauser pocket pistols, but as always some history. In the early 1900s, the Mauser company was mostly noted for their bolt-action rifles, for which the action of the Gewehr 98 is still copied to this day. They also produced the C96 broom handle pistol. All of this saw action in various conflicts, notably Winston Churchill's sidearm in the Second Boer War and Lawrence of Arabia's sidearm in the Middle East. It was never adopted as an official military sidearm, and it was actually loved by the British and Russians more than it was the Germans. While it still saw some commercial success, it paled in comparison to the Browning designs coming out of Colt and FN. A young engineer, Joseph Nichols, started with Mauser in 1904 and envisioned a pistol design that could be sized up or down for whatever cartridge was needed. He started with a delayed blowback design for the 9mm Luger round. From this came the model 1907 prototype. The action used was not reliable, so he decided to design a straight blowback pistol. Even with heavy springs and slides, the 9mm was too powerful of a cartridge for the gun. The 7.65mm round from the broom handle was also tried, but the recoil for the little pistol was too much and the military wasn't interested in adopting a new round yet. I remember the C96 was not an official military pistol. So Nickel went with the 6.35 Browning cartridge, also called the 25 ACP, to build his pistol. Although Mauser called it the Model 1909, most have referred to it as the Model 1910 since production didn't begin until late 1910. The finished product was a straight blowback striker-fired pistol. In 1914, there was a redesign which saw changes to the magazine and an extractor added. The pistol was offered in the 7.65mm or 32 ACP round for the first time. The 7.65mm chambered pistol was usually referred to as the Model 1914, and the 6.35mm pistol is referred to as the 1914/10, which is what I have. The serial numbers on both my 1914 and 14/10 pistols put them being made in the 1920s, so these are post-war examples. Shooting the 1410 showed me that my magazine badly needs a new spring, but the 1914 shot fairly well. I just loaded up 6 rounds into the magazine, because I wonder if the magazine's a little weak in this. Had a better feed, or actually it's a double feed. Alright, now here's the little 1914. This, going by the serial number, this was made in the 1920s. 7.65mm or 32 ACP. Now, I only had one magazine come from this, but I borrowed this out of the 1934. I want to see if they're interchangeable, which they should be. Here we go. Quite a bit better than the 1910. So let's put the 1934 magazine in there and see how it does. Like I said, it shouldn't be any problem doing this. Ruh-roh. And failure to feed. Okay, I had a little problem with the 1934 magazine. And I think I know why. I'll show it to you when I compare both compare the pistols side by side. Alright, here's the 1914 with its own magazine. Again, 32 ACP. This is the one that seemed to work really well the first time I shot it. Alright, let's try it with the 1934 magazine. This one held up a little bit previously, so it kept wanting to push the magazine out. So let's see if this works a little better this time. Not too shabby.
There was a small redesign in 1934. The grip curved out as opposed to being straight as on the 1914. And another way to tell the difference between a 1934 and 1914 is look at where the serial number is located. On the 1914, the serial number is stamped, or just stamped into the slide, whereas on the 1934 there's an indentation where the serial number is located. Other differences between the pistols include that the 14 was milled, completely milled, and the 34 was stamped in places to save on time. Also, there's a difference in the magazine release. Let me see if I can't get a good picture of that. This is the 34. This is the 14. You can see that the magazine release is far meatier on the 1914 or on the 1934, excuse me. And when shooting it, it actually held the magazine in, whereas a couple times on the 1914 it dropped out on me. The special thing about my 1934 is that it has a Kriegsmarine stamp on it, and these are pretty rare, so this is always a good addition to have in any collection. You got to keep in mind that the German Navy didn't have that many surface ships thanks to the Treaty of Versailles, and the capital ships they did have, well, after the Bismarck was sunk, the capital ships they did have were hid in Norway for most of the war. So they relied on U-boats to do most of their work. And the attrition rate on the U-boats was about 75%. I believe about 40,000 people joined the U-boat service, and only 10,000 sailors survived. And only officers were allowed to carry sidearms on the U-boat. So finding a Kriegsmarine stamped pistol is always a great addition to any collection. There are only about 6,000, from what I've read, there's only been about 6,000 Kriegsmarine 1934 produced, but there are about 21,000 HSC that have the Kriegsmarine stamp on them. So it's a pretty rare thing to find one with the stamp on it, considering most are at the bottom of the Baltic or the Atlantic. When it came to shooting the pistols, at least with the particular examples I own, the 1934 is the best functioning out of all four of these pistols.
Alright, here's the 1934. This has the Kriegsmarine stamp on it. So let's see how she does. Alright. Now let's try it with the 1914 magazine. I don't foresee any problems with this one because, again, I'll show you the difference later on. I like this. I like this 1934. This is the best one out of the 1910 series. This is my favorite one so far. Again, the 1934. I really like this 1934. Very good pistol.
In the late 1930s, Mauser still lagged behind their competitors of Walther and Sauer for police and military use. The 1910s, 14s, 34s were considered obsolete. So Mauser came out with the Hahn Stelpspanner Pistol Design C, commonly known as the HSC. The Stelpspanner means self-cocking hammer. This is chambered in 7.65 millimeters, and this was originally intended to be a commercial pistol. But, as Othais of C&Rsenal would say, war were declared. Most of these ended up in the military, and the HSC was a favorite of the Waffen-SS and Luftwaffe. My particular example has Waffen-Amps on the trigger guard, which are correct. Let's see if I can't get a good focus there. And that Waffen-Amp over the 135 indicates, I guess there's like different variations of these pistols. You can look them up online, but I believe that this indicates that this is a third variation, Army. This is when the fit and finish started to get a little bit worse. It wasn't polished as well as the first variations. This is not a bad shooter, but I like my 1934 better.
Alright, Mauser HSC.
Before I go, I'd like to mention that C&Rsenal are selling shirts again. In many of my videos, I'm sporting either the German shirt or the French shirt that they sold last year. They're selling those again, but they've also added the United States and Austria-Hungary. I'm in no way tied in with C&Rsenal or Mayo and Othais, but of all the channels that I support on Patreon, I believe theirs is the most important, just because by the time they're done, they will have the reference for World War I firearms. Some of the firearms they talk about are rare. It's hard for them to obtain samples of, and it's hard to even obtain research material for. So, not only do they have to obtain the firearms and materials, but sometimes they have to go to the firearms because of NFA laws, such as machine guns. Some of the more rare firearms, they have to find materials from like Hungary, Austria, Germany, and have them translated. And this is the only thing they do. So, by the time they're done, they will have the most in-depth reference for World War I firearms, and I just want to get the word out there about their shirts. I'm going to leave a link below to the Indiegogo account. The deal is you buy the shirts and then they order them in bulk, and then you'll get them probably in September. I know that sounds like a long turnaround, but considering what they do, I have no problem with it. Like I said, I got the shirts last year. I got the posters last Christmas. So just help, if you believe in history, firearms, the in-depth history that they go into, go ahead and help them out. So finally, I'm just going to say thank you for watching. Check out my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and as always, have a great day.